Kim, tell us what's on your radar.
Well, on August 29th, the U.S. military claimed they had successfully targeted and taken out multiple ISIS-K suicide bombers who were an imminent threat to the Kabul airport. This came as a relief to many who feared for the lives of service members and civilians following the deadly attack that took 13 service members and over 100 Afghan civilians only days earlier. Captain Bill Urban, spokesman for the U.S. Central Command, claimed the drone strike had successfully taken out a vehicle packed with a substantial amount of explosives. Quote, U.S. military forces conducted a self-defense, unmanned, over-the-horizon airstrike today on a vehicle in Kabul, eliminating an imminent ISIS-K threat to Hamad Karzai International Airport. We are confident we successfully hit the target. Now, they certainly hit the target, but the problem was the target wasn't who they thought he was. The man the U.S. military murdered was Zamari Ahmadi, a 43-year-old innocent aid worker who was returning home with large jugs of fresh water to give to his neighbors. Zamari worked for a California-based charity group, Nutrition and Education International, which feeds impoverished Afghans. The organization had actually applied to move Zamari to the U.S. as a refugee. And the U.S. military, which supposedly has the most advanced technical weapons in the world, mistook Zamari's water jugs and laptop computer for explosive materials. And they also mistook Zamari, a completely innocent humanitarian aid worker, as being a suicide bomber. But the worst part is they didn't just kill Zamari. They killed Zamari and 9 of his family members, 7 of whom were children. Now, how could they have possibly made this grave of a mistake? They don't know. Here's Senator Rand Paul asking Secretary of State Tony Blinken to clarify, was Zamari an aid worker or was he a terrorist?
The guy the Biden administration droned, was he an aid worker or an ISIS-K operative?
The administration is, of course, reviewing that strike, and I'm sure that a full assessment will be forthcoming.
So you don't know if it was an aid worker or an ISIS-K operative?
I can't speak to that, and I can't speak to that in this setting in any event.
So you don't know or won't tell us?
I don't know because we're reviewing it.
Well, see, you'd think you'd kind of know before you off somebody with a Predator drone, whether he's an aid worker or he's an ISIS-K. See, the thing is this isn't just you. It's been going on for administration after administration. The Obama administration droned hundreds and hundreds of people. And the thing is there is blowback to that. I mean, I don't know if it's true, but I see these pictures of these beautiful children that were killed in the attack. If that's true, and not propaganda, if that's true, guess what? Maybe you created hundreds or thousands of new potential terrorists from bombing the wrong people.
Rand Paul is exactly right. Drone strikes have been going on long before Biden took office and likely will continue long after Biden leaves. And our military leaders and presidential administrations will continue to either hide military operations or lie about them. In Zamari's case, General Mark Milley lied, claiming that after the drone hit Zamari's car, a second explosion occurred, proving his car was packed with explosives. He then called the attack a righteous strike.
The third thing is we know from a variety of other means that at least one of those people that were killed was a ISIS facilitator. So were there others killed? Yes, there are others killed. Who they are, we don't know. We'll try to sort through all that. But we believe that the procedures at this point, I don't want to influence the outcome of an investigation, but at this point we think that the procedures were correctly followed and it was a righteous strike.
There's no evidence of an additional explosion that happened after that attack. So the attack was just sickening. And it really showcases exactly why we needed to end the war in Afghanistan. But it also showcases how presidents can champion ending wars while still engaging them. Obama, who ran as the anti-Bush, took office after America had been at war for 7 years. Americans who were once all about getting the 9/11 attackers had grown weary of the wars and wanted them to end. And in order to placate the American people while still appeasing the various interests who wanted to remain at war, Obama figured if he could at least lessen the number of U.S. casualties, there would likely be less news and thus less opposition. The drone program, which began very modestly under Bush, ramped up nearly tenfold under Obama. This would allow Obama to eventually scale down troop numbers while still maintaining a very threatening presence in the Middle East. It also allowed him to engage in warfare in parts of the world we Americans had no idea we were even in, like Somalia. But Obama's ramping up of this unmanned, over-the-horizon drone warfare gave Trump, a candidate who also ran on ending wars, the grand opportunity to seemingly maintain his campaign promise while escalating at the exact same time. Now, though Trump didn't end wars like Obama, he was able to significantly scale down troop numbers while significantly ramping up drone warfare. Trump knew he was pulling a fast one on the American people by making it look like he was ending wars, all the while keeping the money-making establishment war hawks happy through even further ramping up this unmanned, over-the-horizon style warfare. So he made it a secret. He signed an executive order that ended the reporting of civilian casualties inflicted by drone strikes, an executive order that the Biden administration has not reversed. Now, back in March, the Biden administration said they would begin reviewing Trump's secretive drone strike policies and would begin requiring all strikes outside of determined war zones to be first approved by the White House. But a process that was supposed to take 60 days was extended to 6 months. And here we are now 6 months later with no more transparency and no commitment to end or at least severely limit these over-the-horizon unmanned drone attacks. In fact, the administration has admitted to be happily moving to this style of unmanned war because, let's get real, Americans know nothing less than flexing our military muscles at someone. Plus, there is just simply too much money and too many jobs now in play to truly end wars. So this high-tech, unchecked, unmanned warfare is how presidents like Obama, Trump, and now Biden can pretend to end wars while simultaneously increase military budgets. We're not ending wars, we're just pivoting to these drone strikes. But if our kids and humanitarian workers aren't the ones at risk of being incinerated, who really cares?
Wow.
And this is where we're headed, right? I mean, we're unfortunately headed to this new style of warfare where, okay, yes, we're removing the troops, and so we can placate the American people and say, oh, look, we're not officially at war. But the problem is with those secretive drone strikes is that they're happening in areas where there isn't an official declaration of war. The presidents are able to go back to that. Is it the 2001 or the 2002 authorization of which one is it?
They use the 01 AUMF, but recently they have just started using their authorities as delegated to them in the Constitution. So they're preparing for the AUMF to be repealed and now retreating back to the Constitution and claiming they have the authority, which is extremely dubious, to put it lightly.
Yeah, I'm glad that I think it was very appropriate for Senator Paul, to ask those questions. I wish more members of Congress were asking those same questions. We would not accept this. Can you imagine if U.S. police forces, a SWAT team, gunned down 9 people and then later said, well, we think one of those, we're pretty sure anyway, one of those people was a bad guy. So it's like,
or not.
Maybe.
Or not.
We wouldn't accept that.
Turns out that not.
And Milley is at the same time being celebrated now, newly minted as a Trump resistance hero in the mainstream media. You know, this is a guy who's defending that sort of thing, and it just goes to show you, I think, how the awful political tribalism of our moment forces you to be on one side or the other, when really everyone, and actually it's sort of the quote unquote fringes, my friend, the libertarian right and the like very far progressive left, who are the people most concerned about this kind of thing, for good reason, because it's horrific, it's murder, and it's absolutely unconstitutional and shouldn't be happening.
But at the same time, let's not shrink from describing what the actual occupation in Afghanistan was. Just because one thing is horrific doesn't mean that a separate horrific thing wasn't ended. And what I mean by that is that the Afghan government, which was this collection of U.S. propped up warlords, was slaughtering people around the country on a regular basis. Either Afghan special forces with the support of the United States, or U.S. special forces, knocking in doors and killing people on a very regular basis. Thousands and thousands a year. With the U.S. occupation ended, and with the Afghan National Army folding like a piece of paper, that ends. And that actually, does matter to people in Afghanistan, who won't suffer from those.
It totally matters.
Yeah.
and we should allow them to build back their community, for sure, their country. But it's really similar, I would say, Ryan, and where I'm kind of sounding the alarm, I suppose, is it's kind of like, if the police, going back to that analogy that Robbie's using, if the police were to raid our homes, warrantless searches, right? They come in and they raid our homes looking for things. That's atrocious. We don't want that to be happening. But what's happened now is they've moved these knocking on the door, pounding it through your door and raiding into your home. They've moved to now secret surveillance. Right, they're doing it secretly without you really even knowing, without there really being any oversight, and that's kind of what's happening with the wars. Our wars are moving from that real, get in there and show them, and everybody can see that American families have troops, family members deployed, and so there's some checks on that. But when it's unmanned drone warfare, and we're putting drone bases in Africa and committing all of these, that is like the secret surveillance.
Right, but before the withdrawal, we were doing both. So it's not that we pivoted.
Right, we're ramping it up.
It's not that we pivoted from one to the other. It's that we were doing both, and now we're only doing one, which at least allows us to try and train our energy on rolling back the one that's still going. And your argument here, and Rand Paul's good questioning there, moves us in that direction in a good way.
Hopefully. I don't know.
See.
But I don't know if it's a good thing. I mean, looking at Syria, that's kind of what we're doing over there. But Robbie, we are looking forward to your radar.